This is overkill. This is political germ warfare.
Sean, this indictment is the legal equivalent of the French guillotine.
A political war crime. It's an atrocity. Enough is enough.
So the entire process, which includes a conversation that he had with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump, after asking him to overturn the election, to not do his job at certifying it, he says to Mike Pence, you know, you're too honest. When someone says you're too honest, that means that you want them to do the dirty. You can't disagree with the fact that he knew that he had lost the election because everyone in Christendom...
You're going to try to say that Donald Trump knew he lost. There's no way. They're going to try to prove that in court, Jessica. There's no way he's going to be proven that he knew he lost. He still thinks he's president.
Well, then the insanity defense is available.
Damn! Got him.
The news of Trump's indictment breaking earlier this week, it was inevitable that Jessica Tarlov would get an earful from her co-hosts. None of it making any sense or holding up as a solid defense, of course, but nonetheless, an earful it was.
There are some incredibly important facts that have come out about the January 6th case. Steve Bannon is on tape talking before the election about how they're going to act as if Trump won it before he even knows what's going to happen. You have Peter Navarro, who goes on TV bragging about this. He even wrote a book about how Steve Bannon has orchestrated the whole thing, and it's like a football team, and that he's the quarterback. I think they were the Green Bay Packers. I guess maybe he's from there. He's not going to fly with a majority of Americans.
Well, so indulge the FBI. The FBI deprived people of rights when they covered up the laptop. Or the CIA.
What are you
who finagled the laptop. You know what I'm talking about.
No,
that's corruption before the election, and that denies people the rights.
Having a story, a New York Post story, taken down for 24 hours, and what happened on January 6th are so utterly incomparable, I'm actually shocked at you.
Would it change the election?
I expect your mother will text me.
You're not shocked.
But on Wednesday night's show, she decided to bite back, humiliating their fearless cult leader in the process.
So the entire process, which includes a conversation that he had with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump, after asking him to overturn the election, to not do his job at certifying it, he says to Mike Pence, you know, you're too honest. When someone says you're too honest, that means that you want them to do the dirty thing, that you want them to do the bad thing. Then on page 15
you can disagree with that. You can disagree with that, but you don't arrest somebody over it.
But you can't disagree with the fact that he knew that he had lost the election because everyone in Christendom...
You're going to try to say that Donald Trump knew he lost.
There's no way.
They're going to try to prove that in court, Jessica. There's no way he's going to be proven that he knew he lost. He still thinks he's president.
Well, then the insanity defense is available. On page 15 of the indictment, for instance, they talk about what happened in Georgia. And co-conspirator number 2, who we know is Rudy Giuliani now, tells Donald Trump, the defendant, this is a fraudulent accusation at this point, and then he still went ahead and pushed it.
Maybe he disagreed.
That's an example.
So it's like the Russian collusion thing when Schiff goes in there and gets a briefing and then comes out and says
all
there's collusion.
I have heard from you is Hillary Clinton, Russia collusion. You cannot move on with your life. Move on. You got new information.
Move on. This is a 2.5-year-old story.
No. It's not. There's new information. We didn't have anything from Mike Pence.
You could just
the fake electors scheme is committing
they were
crimes.
Trump electors.
And also some of his strongest defenders, like Andy McCarthy, wrote this piece in the National Review, which got taken apart.
I have 2 other people at the table.
I know, I'm
aching
so
to
rude.
speak.
I cut off everyone constantly.
This comes after her co-host Jesse Watos had spent the best part of 72 hours teeing up another Dominion lawsuit, spliced in with some good old-fashioned fear-mongering and ad hominem.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail.
That was Special Counsel Jack Smith, who looked like a bedraggled, nervous wreck, dripping with anger and highly emotional. They lead off with saying the president lied about election fraud and knew there was no fraud. How do they know that he knew that there was no fraud? And if this goes to trial, are we going to now have to go back and find fraud in the 2020 election? Is this now what we're going to go relitigate? Does this open up the entire 2020 election in a court setting to Donald Trump going back and proving that there was indeed fraud and presenting evidence of fraud and having that challenged in the court? Is this really what we're going to do? First point, they said the defendant impaired the federal government from functioning. Isn't that literally the Republican Party platform to reduce the ability of the federal government from functioning?
But as former Trump Attorney General Bill Barr said on CNN, none of those arguments hold up as a solid defense.
But I mean, when you do look at the indictment, do you think it's something you would have brought?
I think, I don't know if I would have approved the indictment, but in the sense I may have exercised discretion and not gone forward with the case. I'm also concerned about having this case going on during the election and diverting people's attention from the issues in the election. I'm also worried about, what the impact is if there are acquittals during the campaign. But as a legal matter, I don't see a problem with the indictment. I think that it's not an abuse. The Department of Justice is not acting to weaponize the department by proceeding against the president for a conspiracy to subvert the electoral process.
Which is what Trump's attorneys are saying, and they're also saying that he was just exercising his First Amendment right here. Do you think that's a valid argument in your view?
No, I really don't think that's a valid argument because, as the indictment says, they're not attacking his First Amendment right. He can say whatever he wants. He can even lie. He can even tell people that the election was stolen when he knew better. But that does not protect you from entering into a conspiracy. All conspiracies involve speech, and all fraud involves speech. So, free speech doesn't give you the right to engage in a fraudulent conspiracy.
Do you think he knew that he lost the election?
Do I personally believe that? Yeah, at first I wasn't sure, but I have come to believe that he knew well that he had lost the election. And now, what I think is important is the government has assumed the burden of proving that. The government, in their indictment, takes the position that he had actual knowledge that he had lost the election and the election wasn't stolen through fraud. And they're going to have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Which is a high bar, of course.
It's a high bar. Now, that leads me to believe that we're only seeing a tip of the iceberg on this.
You think
indictment.
Jack Smith has more?
Oh, yes. I would believe he has a lot more. And that's one of the things that impressed me about the indictment. It was very spare. And there are a lot of things he could have said in there. And I think there's a lot more to come. And I think they have a lot more evidence as to President Trump's state of mind.
And while I'm fully aware that this comes from a man who helped lure the lamb to the slaughter, butchered it, cooked it, prepped the table, sat and feasted, only to turn around and plead ignorance over the entire process, there's still valid points.
I was clear on that throughout. I was clear with President Trump throughout, all the way up to the morning of January 6th. But let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued.
And if Trump loyalists think the First Amendment right protects someone conspiring to overthrow the government, put him on the stand. See how this man holds up under questions on the matter.
What do you say to that female independent suburban voter who feels that way, to win her back?
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that this,
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, you take a look at Truth to Vote, where they have people stuffing the ballot boxes on tapes, or
Mr. President,
let's go to recent. Well, wait a minute. Let's go to recent. FBI Twitter. Let's go to recent. The 51 agents, all corrupt stuff, Brett.
Understand about the Hunter Biden,
no, but
all
that's cheating
fair
on the
things.
election.
But
that's cheating on the election.
You lost the 2020 election.
Brett. You take a look at all of the stuffed ballots. You take a look at all of the things, including things like the 51 intelligence agents.
There were recounts in all of the swing states. There was not significant widespread
We're trying
fraud.
to get recounts, real recounts, not just numbers of votes
widespread
cast.
corruption. There was not a sense of that. There were lawsuits, more than 50 of them, by your lawyers, some in front of judges that you appointed.
Look at Wisconsin.
That came out with no evidence.
Wisconsin has practically admitted it was rigged. Other states are doing the same right now, and it's continuing on.
There have been
It was
reviews
a
of
rigged
every
election.
potential case of voter fraud in 6 battleground states, and they found fewer than 475 cases.
You know why? Because they didn't look at the right things.
Okay.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.